There, we'll do the talk show style. So I think it's a fascinating to look at what's happening in Europe and the US, what's happening around privacy and trust. And I think just we understand, of course, there are new tools, but new tools, new measurement also means people can see how bad a driver I am for Allianz, for example. And you can compete in new ways. So I'm going to start off. We have Thorsten of Telefonica. I want you to talk a little bit about the competitive landscape right now. E+, you're suddenly a very vibrant competitor. What's it look like to you, and how are you approaching us differently?
You know, maybe for some of you who don't know what happened in Germany, we just merged two mobile operators to become the largest mobile operator in Germany with 47 million subscribers. For us, if we talk about the customers and about digitalization, this is the unique opportunity to use these mergers. You know, mergers are always not easy, but now we see the radical change in our industry. This merger gives us a unique opportunity. I would say a unique opportunity. It's once in a lifetime opportunity to build a complete new company, because we have to touch any process anyhow. So why not simplify every process and immediately digitalize everything? So we really want to become the leading digital telco in the world, and this is our aspiration.
What does the new consumer look like to you? I'm going to ask each of you to tell me what's new about me, and how do you serve me differently? How, other than cleaning house, becoming bigger, what's going to make you the #1 player?
You know, if you as a consumer talk to mobile operators in the past, you know, you sign up a contract, and if we would have been good, you know, you would give you not a wake-up call, but a welcome call. And then we leave you alone for 24 months, and then we call you again and ask you to prolong your contract. This has completely changed. What the customer wants today is he wants really to get in touch with us nearly every day, nearly in real time. So it's kind of a seamless customer journey, and have interaction with us whenever the customer wants. So what we have to deliver, I call it, you know, we have to deliver the now. And deliver the now means, you know, to really understand the customers, get customer insights, and really improve operational excellence. For us, it's also a unique opportunity to improve operational excellence, because this is where a commodity company really can differentiate. It's all about operational excellence.
Now, if it's once every 24 months for Thorsten, I want to go to Christof. Is it once every 24 years for my insurer? How are you? I mean, this is one of the most, people think of old line, big company. Give us a sense of sort of how the landscape's changing for you, how you're disrupting it. Are you catching up? Are you ahead of it?
Yeah, I think for us, digitalization is a huge opportunity, because it allows us to combine the strength of an existing big player like Allianz. We are providing insurance services, insurance components, not only in Germany but worldwide. And we are combining what is the digital capabilities that are allocated what we call digital ecosystems. And for us, this is a unique opportunity, a little bit the same like Dirk. This digital revolution allows us to combine and to provide our insurance components and services to customers and to consumers that could not afford it in the past. And that, I think, is really now an exciting story and allows us to transform our business model quite radically.
And we're talking about some specific examples, but I want to go to Rob and David. David, tell me, I'm a big brand. You've got two sitting beside you. What do I want from you? What can you do for me? What does the new consumer look like from where you sit?
Sure. So we're both of the big brands to my left and right talk about this digitalization, which I think it's a great word. It's going to be hard for me to spell. But if you think about it, like the way that brands are being digitized when it comes to representing themselves online, that is through content, right? And when you look at the new consumer, probably one of the most dramatic shifts is that consumer views a brand as a publisher first and a peddler of goods and services second. I might
So
buy a
do
pair
these
of
guys
running...
have to produce like Hollywood-style movies? What is it they've got enough on their plate?
The exact opposite, right? Like brands are publishing all day long. I might buy a pair of shoes from, let's say, Nike once a year, but I'm tuning into their running channel 3 times a day for information on how to run better. So the pressure on brands to represent themselves through quality content in this publish or die world, if you're not publishing, you don't exist online. So this pressure on brands to create good content and also to have it at scale is something that we at Tumblr have been playing a huge role in. I think this year we're going to be playing an even larger role. And I would say at the end of the day, like any brand that respects the fact that that consumer ultimately is reached through content, right?
When you say larger role, what are you going to be doing differently? Well,
We've always taken a lot of pride in something that's happened very natively without any of our involvement, and that's we have a nation of creators on Tumblr. Some of the internet's best content creators have been working for causes and brands and so on to help them create great campaigns. So that's something that we've watched happen natively. I think Diesel is a great example of a brand that worked with their audience and activated designers, writers, filmmakers, and so on to basically take over the whole world through this guerrilla marketing campaign that was based on Tumblr. So seeing that and seeing the success, that's something we want to help more brands do.
Okay, so Rob, Lithium, can you do something different?
Sure. So Lithium works with 400 of the world's largest brands creating total community experiences. And I think the biggest difference in the consumer, to answer your question, is the source of truth for a consumer has changed. It's no longer about what a brand always publishes to me through advertisements. It's about what do other people like me say? What's the validation from experts? What's the validation from people with strong reputation? So the key for a brand is how do I create that environment where people will share at large scale? They're already comfortable doing that over social networks with their friends, with colleagues, with businesses, over LinkedIn. But how do I do that in a way that really advances the cause of my brand and captures the imagination, the passions, the fears of consumers as they want to engage with me more broadly?
So I want to ask about the challenges of, let's just take the European and the US. Give me a sense of what do you think works in this market? Since we're talking about the new consumer, let's talk about some of the regional variations. We've seen a lot of brands come storming in here with mixed success. Any theories, Thorsten, any insights you can give us as to what you think works and why some flop so badly, so publicly?
Yeah, if you look to Europe, we have seen a lot of US company, and I think that's what you mean is, think about Walmart. Walmart comes to Europe, especially to Germany. They tried for 3 years, and then it disappeared completely. They're the largest retail brand in the US. And this is not just one example. I can give you a lot of more.
Is it that you're higher quality people? What is it that didn't work?
To be honest, I cannot give you the background of the Walmart story. I just used that as an example to show you that Europe is in one way different from the US. In the US, we have one market. In Europe, even if you look at the EU, you have 28 member states, and they are quite different in the way they behave and the way they act. For example, if you travel to the UK and you go to a bookstore, you always find, buy 3 and just pay 2. I've never seen this in Germany, to be honest. So there are different customer behaviors, and you really have to understand them. So that's why in the different market, customer insight is so important. By the way, also for the online community, and I think that is why it's so difficult also for big online portals like Tumblr or others, or content marketing is different in Europe than it is in the US, because you really have to customize it by country. What makes us important as a global platform to really approach all the different markets in Europe. You build one platform, and then with the US you have a big market. And therefore I think if you look at the digitalization game worldwide, you in the US, you have won the first half of this game. But I can tell you, we as Europe, we will win the second half of this game.
Do you agree?
Uh-oh.
I'm sure.
No comment. No, I mean, I think even when you just look at just content creation, someone obsessed with global scale and efficiency might wrongly say that you should just take US content and localize it into a local language. And in fact, we would say the opposite, which is exactly, Thorsten, what you're saying, which is, I mean, representing yourself on a local scale and speaking authentically to the consumer, they can sniff that out so quickly. One of the other sayings that we have at Tumblr when we speak to brands is pointing out that the consumer is dramatically smarter than you and dramatically smarter than you think they are, and you need to respect that. So walking in with a translated version of your brand campaign would definitely not work. But on the flip side, the fact that we actually don't want brands creating Hollywood-style content, and we want them instead creating small, snackable bridge storylines that go from piece to piece.
So what does a small, snackable bridge storyline look like for Allianz? Claire, I'm giving you some free consulting on stage.
Okay, so I'm not charging for this, but this is something like being in LA, right, with earthquakes happening all the time that I always get worried about.
Yes.
I'm pitching you, what I would like to see is like 50 things to do to earthquake-proof your home or life, and it's just 50 small tips. You're basically going to repurpose a brochure that you probably already have, and maybe I could introduce you to some animated GIF artists on the Tumblr side and illustrators and typographers to help make, update some of the brochures that you have into like a modern visual language. And, do you want to do it?
No, wait,
Where can I sign?
Rob, what can you do?
Where can I sign?
Where
can I sign?
I want to hear what
No,
Rob,
it's,
so
I mean,
the
idea of, I love the comment snackable, the idea of inspiring conversation about topics that have traditionally not been hosted by the brands. That's really the key. So
is it 50,000 friends telling you what to do for an earthquake?
In the insurance industry, there, as I always say, in every industry, and this happens with our customers, whether it's wireless or beauty or electronics, there's latent expertise, latent passion that's out there in your customer base. How do you ignite that? You can professionally try to produce that content for Allianz, or Allianz can create the community, find the people on the social networks who are interested, and invite them into that conversation. Become a conversation as opposed to a broadcast. And I think the Walmart story is a great one, because Walmart took a model that worked in the middle of the United States and said, oh, we'll just apply that without any modification everywhere else, and if it doesn't work, we'll pull out. And the problem is that there is local nuance, there is local understanding, there is personalization, there is context that's required to all these initiatives, but you don't have to guess what that is and publish it out. You can gather it from the ongoing conversations, the dialogue, and the insight that you get from the data gathered through that interaction.
So I want to ask about, and Thorsten, I want to see a little bit about just what you're doing in this area as well, but I'm going to go to Christof first around data and all this, wearable devices on cars. I don't know if I'm still, there. That makes it easier for you to have personalized communication. It also makes it easier to have personalized insurance, which if I'm a bad driver or I'm in a particularly earthquake-prone home, I don't like so much. So give me some sense from a consumer point of view. How is the new consumer dealing with intensely personalized products that could be very expensive?
Definitely. Now, there we are definitely confronted with a sort of paradox. On the one side, the customers and the consumers are expecting from us that we are using all the information that are available and tailoring the devices or the services, the insurance components that we're offering them exactly based on the information that the customers, even based on those information that we don't have, that we are really offering and basing these services based on that. On the other side, there is more and more a growing problem with data protection, or a challenge with data protection. In my opinion, also to add that to the differences between, for instance, US and Europe, I think how to deal with data protection, with data security is a big difference if you compare, for instance, the market in the US and Europe. Whenever we are trying to export a product or something from Europe to the US and vice versa, always data protection, data security is totally different, regulated. So therefore, I think that is
the mindset's different too, not just
the mindset, but also the regulation. And I think it is very helpful for us to come back to the question. Insurance is to a certain extent linked with protection, with security. So therefore, our value proposition will be always connected with data protection. So we will definitely provide services, and there we will combine it with data protection. So we want to solve this paradox, or take this paradox as a starting point to create a value proposition, so that we are capable to provide services, insurance components, almost tailored or based on this segment of one thinking, and then combine that with a real good or well-shaped data protection layer. I think that will be our offer for the future and the answer to your question.
You know, there's a lot of stereotypes that we all deal with regards to sort of how Europeans act, how Americans act, and when you look at sort of the competitive opportunities here, as you're sort of, do you think that as markets free up, is that actually creating sort of a different mindset with consumers in terms of how they're making choices, how they're engaging with you? And give me some sense of what you think is changing in this market right now, because as the landscape changes, that creates opportunities for people to think differently about how they buy, for example.
I think, first of all, I would like to pick up the point of, the mindset, especially regarding data privacy. This is a big issue in Europe. I think, first of all, we need a European solution for that. And then, of course, we need players also on global platforms play according to these rules. I think this is where to start from. Then,
is there not a European solution?
There will be.
There will be.
There will be. Be sure.
What do you hope it looks like?
Sorry?
What do you hope it looks like? I'm putting you in the EU chair.
It will be different from what we have at the US at the moment, clearly. So because the mindset of consumers in Europe is more focused on data privacy, data security than it is in the US. Back to your individual products, I think what the customer wants is a product with what I would call the key 4.0. He wants his personal key where all his data is protected. He wants the key to be plugged in this product, and then it's his personal product. This is how it works. And and it's and it sounds easy, but to deliver this key with all this personal data in, with all this behavior data in, which are completely protected, and then make it a customized product, this is the challenge for the whole industry in the different branches.
So we've always thought, I'm going to go to you, David, we've always thought that Americans would, sell their children for a seat upgrade, because, we're good with trading our privacy for commerce.
I just did that.
Excellent. Well, but you're also from, we've seen Hollywood, for example, and the Sony situation and such. Do you think that that is changing the mindset that the new consumer is becoming much more aware with all of these hacking incidents of the cost of privacy and the value of their data?
Okay, so speaking personally, I was 8 years on the movie studio side running digital marketing. I worked at Sony for the first 4 years, so as soon as it happened...
Were you up there?
I am currently up there. My social security number, my address, it's all online. I verified that. I had to go through like a horrendous amount of just bewildering bureaucracy just to sign up for someone to protect me. I guess I would sum it up. There's this kind of like probably disgusting phrase that refers to data as like the new oil. And maybe what people are increasingly realizing is data is actually the new DNA, right? It is your literal DNA composed online. And I think Europe actually is going to lead the way there as far as a mind shift with companies being more upfront about what they're doing with it. Paying the penalties when they lie and go against that or suddenly get acquired and everything just like changes. That's something that like at Tumblr we've always had a very progressive stance and an always upfront stance. We also have a very cleverly written stance where we actually try to make our terms fun to read and don't try to like drown you in jargon. But
I thought the idea is to keep the type as small as possible so we don't read it at all.
We have large type and it's copywritten, it's actually entertaining to read. But this issue of data is important, and I actually think it's a fundamental human right. It's not something...
But that's different, isn't it? That's something that's changing.
It's definitely changing.
Did it change your mindset to see your social security number up there for all of us to see?
It changes it enough, I think, to where consumers, whether it's insurance or cell phones, they actively seek out your stance on data, and they make judgments about you if you don't have a stance. And that's really, really important probably for brands to understand, is that by not putting something up there, you're essentially complicit, right? You're not saying anything, and we want you to say something as a consumer. That would be, especially the modern consumer, if they're so much smarter than you, They want to know what you're doing with their DNA, right? Their online data.
I was just going to add, I think this idea of data as your DNA is really important, but there's two sides to that. One is the protection side, and clearly we have to do a better job of that. We've had breaches with Target and other things in the US that really gave people the pause that what I put up there is significant, but it's all up there. It's there. It's too late. Cat's out of the bag. So now the issue is how do you protect it, but also how do you use it to identify who you are, get better service. When I come to your community, when I come to your digital sites, I want you to know not just what I bought from you, but what other people think about my opinions. How can I get recognized for the contributions that I make? And that's something we're working on quite a bit, is using the DNA side both for protection but also for expression.
Are there particularly creative examples? Like, what would you say is an example of what it should look like that we'll be seeing more of going forward in terms of really
Europe,
creative
there's
engagement?
a couple of great examples in Europe. Cortel's Bank is doing this with its new digital initiatives. Migros, the largest grocery store in Switzerland, has generated 40 million new Swiss franc from the initiative, where hundreds of thousands of items are being rated by people. This concept of being able to elicit that interest, that expression, that contribution, and then using that to differentiate your service level, to differentiate your advertising, to differentiate. I mean, this is the new phenomenon. We hear about, oh, everybody's doing personalization, but it's like personalization 0.5. Like the next gen personalization is really got to be where the data becomes the key.
There is an impression people have that, like we had Uber here yesterday, that it's the whether it's the boy genius, girl genius startups that really get it when it comes to like innovating and the new consumer, and that big companies are struggling just to kind of get their arms around it. Is that changing? I mean, and how is it changing? I was looking at a video, for example, Christof, you've got disruptor days and accelerator programs. Do you think it's changing? Do you think that whole, we're going to see the big companies will lead the next wave of innovation with consumers?
Yeah, I'm sure, but still big companies are learning the new way of innovating. We started to change ePlus in 2004, 2005 already, when we set up a lot of new companies, small companies with founders teams. So it's all about partnering for me. If you try to inject something in a big corporate, the corporate, the structure, the organization has the tend to just kill it.
So how should partners work with you?
They are working with us. We've founded tens of new and small businesses and set them up. And then, to be honest, where I'm still struggling is how to bridge these ideas. And, everybody who wants can really help me with this, how to bridge these new ideas and how to get these benefits from these small companies. And a lot of them are, now multi-hundred million companies, get these things back into the big corporation. I think this is still at least my or our challenge, how we can benefit in the big and large corporate from these small companies and these small ideas. Sometimes we were successful, but very often we haven't been.
How are you? I'm in the audience. How should I be working with you? Whether it's tech disruptors, what are you looking for, and how do you integrate them into the bigger operations, or do you?
We will. Our idea is, or our concept, or our approach is that we want to combine two strengths. We want to combine the strength of Allianz, of the insurance provider, of the service provider. We are one of the largest corporations providing services associated to insurance. What we need is a second strength, is to understand the digital ecosystems of our customers, of the assets that are important for them, and we need digital innovators that help us to connect to the digital lives, to the digital assets of our customers. And innovation for us is not that we want to transform or to change completely our internal value proposition or value chain. What we need is a combination with these digital new ecosystem, and the innovation pipeline should help us to build the bridge to combine these two strengths that I talked at the beginning, and that is for us innovation. And there we believe we could develop a new value proposition combining these two ideas.
So David, when we think new consumer, we always think millennials. You know, I think millennials and Tumblr, and so it's like, yeah, they're going to do Apple Pay, they're going to engage differently, and the rest of those, well, you know, she's got her smartphone, but she's the old guard. How much of a shift in behavior are we seeing across different demographics, or are we really seeing a lot of this transformation is about engaging millennials when we talk about new consumers?
So I think that the figurehead for this transformation is the millennial generation, but one of the things that we like to point out is that millennials are rapidly getting older. They're actually starting families, right? The millennial mom is no longer a joke. It's actually like
Was she a joke?
Well, I mean,
teen mom's a joke.
Well, she's no longer a teen mom. I mean, like my wife's a millennial mom, right? We have a 8-month daughter, and 2 years ago that was like a way to elicit laughter, and now all of a sudden you say it in the room and people like hunker down. They go, okay, yeah, so we're going to talk about that for the next 15 minutes. People want to know how to reach the millennial mom. Millennials have the largest spending power out of any generation in the history of the entire world. And that's like a big statement, but I think more than old versus young, what's more important when you look at the new consumer is we all have these devices. Everyone in this crowd has these devices in our hands. And at this point, we're all rolling up on 3 years of skill development using these devices and manipulating them and understanding them, whether it's data or how to effectively find something quick from your phone, making a purchase decision, and especially content creation. So I think it's not young and old. It's not millennial and X or millennial and boomer. It's actually, do you have like the skill set for maybe the mobile first, the content first age, or do you not have that skill set? And that's something you see every single day. My grandmother has a better, she's better skilled at using her iPad than my mom, right? Because she uses it all day long and she knows how to FaceTime with me.
She's got time on her hands.
Right, so that's something for people to understand, is that it's actually the skill sets using all these devices that we at companies think about all day long, but the consumers are at different evolution speeds.
What do you find? I mean, with brands in terms of just new consumers, again, we sort of assume that all of the most radical shifts occur among the completely digital generation. Do you think brands are engaging enough with the digital consumer who is Gen X? Okay, so what? Give us some advice.
Well,
what
I mean, it's interesting,
like?
you know, to push ourselves a little bit. We do panels like this, and we say, yes, we all see that disruption happening, but who's really going fast enough? I mean, Uber was up here talking about how they're going to disrupt industry after industry after industry and transformation. We all kind of nod our heads and say, but the truth is, it's going to happen, and the creative power is in the hands of the consumer now. Devices now enable you to unleash expression via text, photo, rich media that you never could before.
But is the bar as high with, like, let's say I'm Gen X. Like, do I give these guys more slack? Because you know what, I'm still fairly comfortable with the old way of engaging. Or are they at risk of losing me because they're so focused on millennials?
Our data says that they're at immediate and urgent DEFCON 5, to use a U.S. expression, level risk of losing these consumers. They make their impression once on the first digital interaction. There are brands that I've seen that put up their business hours on Twitter for Twitter response. We respond 9 to 5. I mean, just think of that in and of itself. But
what time zone?
Whatever the time zone. I mean, it's an old line concept of the call center. Our phones are staffed at this time. And a new media model of 24/7 constant interaction and expectation that you're going to not only be there, but be there with something relevant, something engaging. And so I think it's an immediate issue. I mean,
if I, for example, made you the CEO of Telefonica Deutschland or the COO of Allianz, what would you do today? What would you do today? What would you today? What that is urgent? Since we're talking about DEFCON 5, what do these guys need to do? What does any brand need to do?
I'm not saying that my esteemed colleagues up here aren't acting urgently. I'm saying more broadly in the market, it's an urgent issue. I would immediately look at a 5-year plan
5-year plan, isn't that
5-year? Well, but there's huge amount of infrastructure in these
hello.
companies. 3-year plan, 2-year plan, to change dramatically the way consumer interaction takes place. See, I say 2-3 years. He laughs at me. He says, "There's no way anything at Allianz moves that fast."
No,
and
is that why you're laughing? Is that why you're laughing? I'm laughing because 5-year plan sounds like a...
At the moment, have just prepared the last 3-year plan exactly
A
dealing
2-year
with these
plan?
issues.
Does your 2-year plan, what is it have an urgency around it of, oh my God, we're about to, what is the, I want to get a sense of how urgently the customer is changing in terms of what Rob's talking about.
The sense of urgency is definitely in the...
So what are you going to be
there.
doing? What is the 2 years, give me the landscape. What are we talking about 2 years from now? What looks different to you?
The basic difference will be that we will design and shape the insurance components and services with the help of devices, or the other way around. The devices will design our offer.
So it's apps?
There are apps, and the device is helping us to align our insurance covers to the daily life, to the daily experience of our customers. And I think that is the really exciting story. In the past, we had always to offer annual contracts. So taken motor liability, for instance, motor liability insurance, third-party liability insurance. There we had always to offer annual covers, providing the cover for you. Now we are capable, with the help of the devices, to design covers that are providing an insurance cover for 1 hour, 1 second. You are driving in a very dangerous area.
You're measuring me by the hour, or I'm getting insured by the hour?
Exactly. It's at least an offer, yeah? And
I'll take it.
And we believe that the customers and the consumers are asking for that. Of course, always in the context of this paradoxon that we discussed earlier in terms of what is the data protection and how do we deal with these data.
What does it look like for you? 2 years? Do you have a 24-month plan, or is it
no
24-hour plan?
No, there is no 5 years plan. There is no 3 years plan. There is even not a 12 months plan. To be honest, we have the vision.
You're a day-by-day kind of guy.
No. Let me try to explain it. It's a kind of, we have the vision to become the leading digital telco, but how I look at the leading digital telco today will be very different, or is very different from how I will look at it in 6 months from now.
Okay.
So I have a vision and I have a plan where I want to be with this company in 3 years, and then it's kind of, re-engineering. What do I have to do to get there? And it's like sailing, you have to cross the winds. It's not like that it's a straight line from here to becoming the leading digital telco, to understand how the world is changing, because the world is changing fast. And this is what you are telling us, I have to understand my customer better. It's all about customer insights. It's all about, operational excellence. It's all about monitoring your customer satisfaction, and then it's kind of feedback loop back to, you get better insights, and then you deliver against it. But it's constant learning, and I think this is what changes. It's no longer the 5 years plan. I was really wondering when you mentioned a 5 years plan. So it's really, and this is what a large organization has to understand. It's like, a new way of doing business. It's a new way of thinking, new way of deciding. It's no longer that we come together every week in a board meeting and then we decide on the very important things, or every quarter a supervisory board meeting, or when you talk about decisions make for strategic decisions make for our company, it's also things having to happen in real time, and this is what organizations have to understand.
So is your vision to make it more nimble? Is there any sort of insight into how you do that? If not the strategic meetings, but I understand the customer focus and the need to kind of go with the winds, but how does that give us a sense of your vision as to how you position a massive company in that scenario, and what does that look like in terms of innovating?
It's first of the way you act and the way you digitalize or digitize your company internally. It's not just managing the customer or the customer interfaces. It's also how you run your company internally. And it's not just...
Do you reorganize how people work?
Yes.
Because of the new environment? And how? What have you done that positions you better for the new consumer in terms of the organization?
To be honest, let's start with the consumer, because that's the easiest one. And the way we tried, we were organized in silos. We had customer service, we have marketing, we had sales, Now, what we like is working in what we call Scrum teams. It's teams sitting together and interact. It's not that...
Consumer looks like, and what you think perhaps we don't understand in terms of where this world's going. We focus so much on the tools. I'd love to get your sense as to what you think is changing and what you're still struggling with.
Yeah, I think we all understand, and we discussed it here, and not only here, how the new consumer thinks, and he's much better informed, and how he get better informed, and how he decides. I think for me the biggest challenge is to really cope with the speed, with to get, as we discussed, also if we have done all the internal changes, the way of working, simplicity, digitalization, everything, to still cope with the speed of the constant change that we see in our world. And maybe back to what you call the content marketing. I think it's also the way how we inform customers and how we deal with them in our everyday interaction. The point of sale becomes a point of experience, becomes a kind of a theater. It's much more about emotion. It's not just selling a product. It's about how you design the whole thing. How it starts with how to present the product, how to do the sales, even the unpacking. You look at how many unpacking videos you see on YouTube. It's an experience to unpack a product. This is what the customer wants. It's more theater. It's more emotional. It's not just one sale. As we have done it maybe in the past.
And, with all of this data, David, we still get surprised by what goes viral. So we can't be too Hollywood, but we can't be too amateur. We have to be somewhere in the middle. It's that perfect, je ne sais quoi. What does that tell us about the consumer? I mean, are you able to tell right away that this is the sweet spot, this is what works in reaching them?
Yeah, I mean, as long as we've done enough research on the brand's objectives, which we try to work with the brand to translate brand objectives into content pillars
so can you
or content
fake
passions.
Authenticity? Like, well, what's the
you can fake it for a certain amount of time, but eventually the consumer sniffs it out. And I think the thing that still bewilders us, it's something that I myself am getting used to, is even the word consumer shows that we haven't actually accepted the fact that before they're a consumer, they're an audience.
And they're a producer, too.
They're a creator as well.
Look what I'm doing with this Skittle. I'm putting it up my nose. Hey, don't do that.
The everyday, let's use the word consumer, looks at a brand as a publisher first, and they view themselves as an audience first before they look at a brand as a peddler of product and themselves as a customer. And that's language that we all eventually will probably start shifting a little bit, but the demand on the consumer, to what we say, it's 3 laws of content, right? To either be entertained, to be informed, or basically to be visually delighted. Content that's artistic. When people follow those 3 rules, brands have a lot of success.
Okay. Christof, how are you thinking about this in terms of, obviously, consumers, you're engaging with them more often. What is it that you think is actually sort of changing in terms of the mindset around your industry, or frustration?
I think it's not a frustration, it's a real exciting opportunity that we are confronted with, because one of the traditional problems or challenges of the insurance industry was to implement a high-frequency interaction. And with digital, that allows us to put on a totally different level. Understanding the consumer, understanding the way how they want to protect their assets, or the assets are important for them, offers us the opportunity now to interact on a daily or on a permanent basis with the customer, offering our services to them. The frustration or the challenge, I would say, is how to structure internally the organization to meet exactly these challenges, to develop also the new offers and the new products, services. And I think the biggest challenge is, I think we have to really understand the device and this logic, and then to transform and to translate it in a specific design, how we want to shape in the future our insurance and service components.
Great. Rob?
So you asked us to do a quote, too, so I found a good one.
Yeah, a quote.
So a biblical
haiku
scholar, Maimonides, is a really good one. He said, the risk of a bad decision is a lot better than the terror of indecision, which I think is a great one for digital transformation. And I think the concept for me that I continue to see with our customers is very much these ideas of changing the consumption model. So this idea of lean consumption, you buy insurance by the hour, by the device, or tied to a metered usage. the idea of interaction patterns changing to in-app from traditional things. All of these ways of thinking about it and making a series of decisions, publishing content that's much more tuned to inspiration rather than promotion. They're all great ideas, and every company has to make a series of decisions. Some will be bad, some will be good, but it's a lot better than not doing anything. Fail fast.
Fail fast. Well, thank you very much. Please join me in thanking the panel. Great conversation.